Welcome. I'm Clark Dalton. This spring, I will graduate from the University of Texas at Austin with a degree in communications, specifically a bachelor's of journalism with a minor in sports media. From youth, I was obsessed with learning about, competing in, and watching athletic events. I had the ability to remember the exact details of every Super Bowl by the time I was in first grade. However, it wasn't just the history or the actual games that inspired me. Athletes are a symbol for the strength of the human spirit. They serve as a template for motivation and work ethic. Their skill and focus is unparalleled and something we respect. Thus, they thrill us by pushing the human body to its limits, bring people together by providing a source of enjoyment, and motivate us to strive for greatness in our lives. Throughout my school days, I played soccer, basketball, football, and baseball. This helped me understand the intricacies of each sport and good sportsmanship. Yet, something was still missing for me. There was a level of intellectual engagement I missed when competing. That all changed my sophomore year in high school when I set foot into my audio-video technology class. My teacher was open-minded, which allowed me to express my passion for sports verbally and on a regular basis. It enabled me to expand my interests and thoughts for my career. Plus, my family is vocal and has always encouraged me to communicate my thoughts, feelings, and ideas. Thus, speaking has been paramount to me and has provided me with uncanny confidence in my ability to deliver worthwhile conversation. This paved the way to the creation of my first YouTube channel called Club Sports and numerous other podcasts. From that point forward, I kept crafting my skills and pursued every opportunity that presented itself. Combining my purpose with my extensive knowledge of sports that stretches decades reveals my responsibility to preserve the history of sports so individuals can truly appreciate the evolution of competition. I'm also driven to elaborate upon the here and now in order for people to not only understand the relevance of where we've been, but where we're going. Society is at a crucial point where we need events to unify us rather than to drive us apart. I truly believe that sports will be a positive force. I hope to continue my pursuit of broadcasting not for the purpose of spontaneity, but as a true source everyone can enjoy, creating a culture that embraces greatness and the journey towards it. The following are short segments of some of my work. Due to time constraints, all episodes are cut to seconds or minutes. I'm a vigilant student and always continue to learn to reach new heights.
In 1969, the Texas Longhorns completed their championship chase with a storybook moment. It's time to turn back the clock 50 years and reminisce on the glory once again.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the game of the year.
Welcome everyone to College Press Box. I'm your co-host, Theodore Kim, and joining alongside with me is College Press Box All-Star, Clark Dalton. Clark, how's your weekend?
Thank you for calling me an all-star, by the way, and thank
No
you for the
problem.
handshake.
No
I had a
problem.
pretty good weekend
Professional.
overall. It's just that time of year where college football and college basketball is really starting to heat up, and it's in another exciting episode of College Press Box. So let's get right into it. Bijan breaks the curse. Texas volleyball takes care of business against West Virginia, and Saquon Barkley silences the doubters with a strong comeback. You won't want to miss this one. It's another outstanding episode of College Press Box. Welcome in. I'm Clark Dalton, joined alongside Tommy Yarsh. Tommy, you excited for tonight?
Always excited, my friend.
Love to hear it. This past Saturday, Texas had some frogs to flop. For the past 8 years, Gary Patterson's TCU team has been a thorn in the Longhorn side, winning 6 of the last 7 matchups. The last time Texas won in Fort Worth was 2013. It's fair to say a victory would not only improve Big 12 prospects, but settle a score. Could Sark get the job done and grab his first major road victory? Let's head to Amon G. Carter Stadium to find out. And we're going to start this one from the top of the game, and Texas fans are saying, uh-oh, not again, because J.D. Spellman is taking it all the way from the TCU end zone down to the Texas 10-yard line. Zach Evans is going to power through the defense on a jet sweep, giving the Horned Frogs a 7-0 lead early at the top of the first quarter. Evans and Bijan Robinson have been longtime rivals, and Bijan is going to respond, saying, welcome to my neighborhood, where we have 27-yard touchdown runs that put the Longhorns up 10-7. First quarter had a lot of fireworks. TCU had 3 turnovers. Here's one right here. Deshaun Jameson, you can't use that trickery on me. He picks up the fumble. That sets up a Cameron Dicker field goal. Max Duggan later on in the first quarter, scrambling around, looking, fires to Spellman. He's going to reach across the goal line. Fumbles, doesn't matter. That puts up TCU up 14-13 later on. Bijan slipping through the defense, getting his second touchdown. Casey Thompson with a rare error here, throwing it deep into triple coverage. Just trying to force it to Xavier Worthy, not there, rare mistake. But this is where the tide turns. Boom! Anthony Cook forces the fumble, picks it up, and that sets up an opportunity for Texas. Casey fires deep downfield. Jordan Whittington with the catch of the year candidate. Look at that. The defender was draped all over him. Casey wants a little more from Whittington. He's going to gallop into the end zone here to put Texas up 32-20 in the fourth quarter. But the Horned Frogs are hanging around, unfortunately. Kendra Miller being a pest, getting in the end zone. It's 32-27. Texas needs something, but truly B.A. Bijan astounding, powering through the whole team right here. Look at it. It took like 11 TCU players to tackle him. Texas wins this one 32-27. Bijan Robinson was absolutely spectacular. He had 35 carries, 216 yards, which was a career high, 2 touchdowns. Casey made a lot of plays with his legs. Jordan Whittington continues to be the leading wide receiver. Deshaun Jamison, DeMarvion Overshawn, Luke Brockermeyer, all keeping it real on defense. But Anthony Cook was definitely the star, had those 6 tackles and that forced fumble, and Cameron Dicker was perfect from field goal range. Texas is now 4-1, headed into Red River.
6, Los Angeles Chargers. Clark Dalton, what say you?
With the 6th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Chargers select Justin Herbert, quarterback from Oregon.
All right, give us the deep dive. Why Herbert?
Now, Herbert, he's the most interesting quarterback prospect in this class. He's the guy, if you're drawing up a franchise quarterback, this is what they look like. He's 6'6", has a rocket arm, ran a 4.68 40-yard dash at the combine, and he's smart. He threw 32 touchdowns in 2019, and that was in spite of having young, inexperienced wide receivers. He's a lot of untapped potential, and I think he's going to grow into a star at the next level.
All right, so we're 6 picks in, and we've got 3 quarterbacks off the board. Next up, Clark, we stick with you because you have the Carolina Panthers at number 7, and who will they be selecting?
With the 7th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select Derek Brown, defensive tackle, Auburn.
All right, War Eagle out there. Derek Brown goes to the Panthers. Why did you choose to take Brown, the defensive tackle?
Brown is the best defensive tackle in this class, bar none. He's 6'5", so he has a unique ability to actually disrupt the passing game a little bit because he can get those big, long arms up there, and that's especially important in the NFC South right now because you're going up against Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, and now Tom Brady, and he's really agile through the gaps. He easily gets into the backfield easily. He had 55 tackles last season, 12.5 were for a loss, and that led Auburn. I think he's going to be a great pro.
After the loss to Duke, Texas came back to win their final game of the tournament against Weber State. We now welcome in our softball analyst, Clark Dalton. Thanks for coming on tonight. Texas softball is on fire with a 15-1 start, but there has been some close games. How do these close games affect the team?
Overall, I think it has a positive effect on the team because now they have increased confidence in the clutch, which is a part of the makings of a great team. Additionally, now there's an awareness of some angles you can carve out to reach the pinnacle you're aiming for. 3 out of the last 5 games have been surprising since they were all decided by 1 run and against unranked opponents, North Texas, Lipscomb, and Duke. All 3 of these teams have flown under the radar, though. Duke and North Texas are both 12-2 and receiving top 25 votes. Lipscomb won 42 games last season. So these games are really outliers. And one thing that's an indicator of that is you'll notice Texas didn't convert some of the opportunities they normally do. They left 8 runners on against North Texas, and there was only 1 run scored in the entire game against Duke. It was very slow paced, and it was in the 4th inning. So these are areas that are easy to fix. There's no serious cause for concern. It's a team that is loaded with talent. They've scored 146 runs. The recent games sharpen them as they get ready for the tougher portion of their schedule.
And with that, pitcher Miranda Elish, coming from Oregon with Mike White last season, has definitely established her dominance here at Texas. How important is she to this team?
Let's use an analogy here. If this Texas team was a car, Miranda Elish would be the engine. Now, I know that sounds a bit hyperbolic, but by the time she's done, she's going to be hallowed as one of the best players to ever wear the burnt orange. Coming into the season, I didn't think she could get any better, but she's taken her game into the stratosphere. Last year, her ERA was 1.81. This year, it's 0.53. Opponents simply can't make contact with the ball when she's on the mound. And not only is she a great pitcher now, but she's stepped up her game in the offensive phase of the game as well. Her batting average has gone from 315 to 464. And on top of that, she can back up those numbers with victories. She's 7-1 as a starter. This type of improvement for a player that was already at a high caliber is just utterly remarkable. She's a huge reason for this program's resurgence, why they've been ranked in the top 5 for the first time since 2013, and she'll definitely be vying for some awards at the end of the season.
Definitely. And with Texas this week taking on Louisiana at home and UCLA away, how do you see Texas competing in this upcoming schedule?
I think this is the most important week of the season thus far because you're playing the creme de la creme. You truly have to bring your A game against 2 top 10 opponents. Louisiana Lafayette has everything to gain from this matchup since they're a smaller program who's trying to earn the respect of bigger national powerhouses and cement themselves as an up-and-comer. Then to top that off, you have to face the #1 team in the country and defending national champion UCLA Bruins, who are at full strength with the backing of their home crowd. This will indicate if Texas is ready to climb the mountaintop and join the major championship contenders, marking a chance to set the bar even higher this season if you pull off the upset. I expect both of these games to be a fight to the finish. Therefore, it will be a huge challenge. Despite that, I think both games will bode well for the Horns and bolster their resume nationally.
Talented players, and with all that talent, do you think the Longhorns will go far this year?
Absolutely. And I'm going to say it just because we always say it on here. There's definitely a lot of pressure around the program. There's always those whispers, can they do it this year? But I think it's going to be a great year for both programs. Greg Brown is so gifted. He will lift the team into the tournament. However, I think Baylor's going to win the Big 12. Texas will finish inside the top 5. I don't know if they're going to make it into the top 3 since West Virginia, Kansas, and Baylor have just been so established and so consistent over the past few seasons. Texas women's, I think this can be a 20-plus win team because they're healthy. They have a lot more depth. Now, they won't beat Baylor this year, but they're going to make the gap just a little bit smaller, which is really important for the future of the program. I think they're going to finish second in the Big 12 and win a game or 2 in the tourney.
Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. We're here with Clark Dalton. You know, you're notorious for being on TSTV Sports. This is your first time on 1-0, so how are you feeling this morning?
Pretty good. Spring's a time of renewal, so it's great to try new things, and I'm happy to be on 1-0.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and we're here in the locker room now. We're going to talk about just kind of MLB predictions. Spring training's warming up, so Daniel, want to take it?
So we're gonna go through each division and ask you which team is gonna come out on top at the end of the season. Let's start with the best division in the world in every sport, the AL East. Who you got in there?
The Yankees. To me, this is an easy one. Like, this is probably easily the most talented team in the division. Aaron Judge, Juan Carlos Stanton, Gleyber Torres, DJ LeMahieu, and the pitching is finally solidified with Jarrett Cole coming in free agency. When you look at all the other teams, the Rays are developing, the Red Sox are kind of licking their wounds, and the Blue Jays and Orioles don't really have a direction that they're going in. But the Yankees are clearly primed and ready to contend for a championship right now. And there's a lot of pressure on New York since there's so much talent. And the window, even though it's wide open right now, may close in a few years, and you have to go get a series right now with all of these guys in their prime.
I like that answer, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one thing you kind of talked about is just that who's going to compete against them in that division.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, you listed all the teams right there. You know, the big one's Boston. You perfectly said they're licking their wounds. They don't have much to, you know, kind of compete with right now. And pretty much all the other teams just aren't just on that level that the New York Yankees are on.
Yeah, but I would say this. As a Yankee fan, there's no point of getting just too cocky here. I'm saying the Red Sox will be one of those teams under the radar. They have no expectation anymore. They could be like the Yankees of 2017, and they still have a pretty good core down there, up there at Boston. Again, they're not aimed to be the championship team anymore, but they're still a pretty good bunch. So I would keep an eye on the Red Sox and especially the Rays. They're a pretty decent team after a pretty decent playoff run last year. Let's move on to the AL Central. We got the Twins, who again won the division last year. Kind of shocked a lot of people, but now they're in there to be. Everybody expect them to win the AL Central now, but you still have the Indians, who's kind of like have a on and off relationship with Lindor. Not the best Valentine's relationship on Valentine's Day. So, which team do you got coming out of AL Central?
I think the Twins are going to repeat, and the Twins are really interesting because MLB.com posted an article a few days ago, and the Twins are really underrated because they might have one of the deepest lineups in baseball. You added Josh Donaldson, who's been an MVP. Nelson Cruz, we all know what he's done. He's one of the best players in the game. and then you have Byron Buxton, who's a nice player as well. The thing is, with the other teams in the division, the Royals, White Sox, and Tigers, they're all struggling right now.
Yeah.
They're trying to rebuild. They're just not the same team. And the Indians, they're kind of starting to show some of their wear and tear. They also lost Trevor Bauer, which is huge. And that's going to be hard to counter against the Twins hitting. And I think with the lineup that's so deep, this could be a team that could win like 94 games, 95 games realistically. And maybe even challenge in the AL playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of going back to what we said about the AL East. The Twins are kind of on a level where it's it's kind of them and pretty much everyone else. I forgot that Trevor Bauer is not in the Cleveland Indians anymore. So I was like, oh dang, I forgot about that. That is huge for the Indians. So it'll be interesting to see. They were kind of that under the radar, kind of shocking everyone last season. So it'd be sweet to get it done and bring it back to Minnesota. So.
Yeah, I think the Twins are the clear favorites. And you look at, again, the Tigers, the Royals, and the White Sox are rebuilding. The Indians are, because they're a small market team, they always have a longer downtime. We're starting to see the start of that. We're starting to see the start of that. So we're not going to see the Indians probably competing with the Twins. Well, I'm looking at the Twins, though. I don't think going deep in the playoffs again. If they get a starting pitching at the trade deadline, we're talking at a different team. But getting Maeda was a very, very good move for the Twins. They need pitching. Their pitching was smacked around by the Yankees, and they play the Yankees or the Astros again in the divisional series. Their pitching is not going to match up. So that's going to be an important part for the Twins. Let's move on to the AL West. Astros, despite their PR firm, is still a very, very good team, even though they lost Garrett Cole. In AL West, you still have the Angels, who bolster their lineup. The A's are always going to be in there unless they're very, very bad. They're either very bad or they're in the playoffs. So who do you got in there?
Look, I know people on the show think I'm just the biggest Astro supporter ever, but the thing is, with this scandal, it puts a target on their back, and there was one already, because this has been one of the best teams in baseball for 3 years. Even though I think they're the most talented, it's going to become such a huge distraction that it'll hurt them because they can't focus. So I'm going to go with the A's, and there's a lot of things to like about Oakland this year. 4 out of their 5 starters in their pitching rotation are under 28 years old. Sean Maneta, Jesus Luzarado, AJ Puck, Frankie Montas. It's the morning. My pronunciation will get more on track later. And they also have a great infield with Matt Chapman and Matt Olson at first and third base, respectively. And the A's, they're smart. They know how to get the most out of their talent, more so than any team in the American League, probably. So I think that's going to be a huge advantage. This could be a 97-win team, even they won 97 games the past 2 seasons. So the A's definitely you have to watch out for.
Yeah, definitely. I see this divisional race being a little bit more closer, just between the A's, the Angels, and the Stros. Personally, I think the Angels might be able to get it done. This might be finally Mike Trout's season. And, you just kind of talked about the Angels bolstering their lineup, too. So a lot of new faces in the AL West. But, I definitely agree. This should be a really good race. So.
Don't underestimate starting pitching. And the Astros still have Verlander and Greinke on the top of that lineup. They lost Garrett Cole. They lost Wade Miley, 2 important pieces. But, again, the core of the lineup's still there. None of them was suspended because of the scandal. So the Astros are still the clear favorites to win the AL West. It's up to them to lose their division. And honestly, if you compare talent by talent, they're the favorites to be playing the Yankees in the NL Championship Series. So that's the AL. We're moving over to the National League. We're going to spend a little bit more time there because some of the divisions are much more competitive. Let's start with the NL East. Braves, Phillies, Mets are in there. The Nationals, the defending champs, are all in the same division. The Marlins, Derek Jeter's doing his thing. So which team do you got in the NL East?
This was the hardest division for me to pick, probably, because realistically, all 4 of those teams could win the division in some odd scenario. I mean, the Mets could be competitive. We haven't seen that for a couple of years now, but I looked at it, and I can't go against the defending champs.
I see.
Steven Strasburg is still in his prime. He had a 3.32 ERA last year, and Victor Robles and Juan Soto are starting to step up and come into their own. I like the Braves, but I think the Nationals pitching is just too much for other teams to come over in this division. And Philadelphia, the Bryce Harper experiment, it didn't really work last year, not to be mean or anything, but that's just a matter of fact. So I think the Nationals will be NL East champions.
Yeah, the Phillies have some time to get clicking. They have Bryce Harper for the next decade or so.
Yeah.
So, they got some time to kind of get back on track. But I agree. It's definitely hard to pick against the Nationals. The Mets are super competitive with, Pete Alonso is going to be pretty much the face of that franchise now. I'm eager to see what he can do. And yeah, the Phillies have some time to rebuild, but like I said, it's going to be pretty hard to pick against the Nationals. They kept most of their guys. They're hungry for more and just bring that title back to the Capitol.
The one thing I worry about the Nationals is the World Series hangover. I think they're going to be in there, but again, Juan Soto's very young. He might be in the hangover. Howie Kendrick, an important piece in the playoff last year. He's a year older, so I'm going to go. Y'all don't think the Phillies are not going to do well? I think the Phillies are going to do very well because Kepler did a doubtful job at the Phillies in the last 2 years, and they brought in Joe Girardi, again, one of my guys. He was at the Yankees for a decade, and he also brought in Didi Gregorius, who's going to be an important piece to help Girardi bring in some of his philosophies. Bryce Harper, again, like you said, not a great first year, but again, it's Philadelphia. It's one of the toughest places to play, and he's on a $330 million contract. So first year, a little bit of a down year. That's expected. So I expect him to bounce back, and they still have a pretty decent rotation to compete in the NL East. So the Phillies will be the one team that I will look out for. Let's go into the NL Central. None of the teams in the NL Central are the favorites to be in the NLCS.
Yeah.
But it's very competitive. The Cubs took a little bit step back. The Cardinals, the way they play the NLCS doesn't tell you they shouldn't have been there last year. The Reds made a lot of big moves in the offseason, and the Brewers are still very competitive. Who do you got there?
This is probably the sneakiest division in baseball, just because all of these teams, there's not like a true superstar on these teams, so that kind of makes them dangerous. That being said, though, I'm going to go with the St. Louis Cardinals just because they're so well run. They have one of the best shortstop, second base combinations in Paul DeJean and Colton Wong, who could have won the Golden Glove last year. Jack Flaherty, he's coming into his own as a starting pitcher. He only allowed 10 runs in nearly 100 innings, and the Cardinals, they're well established. They make the playoffs often. And even though the Reds, they are going to challenge them, there's just not as much experience and chemistry.
Yeah. You kind of put it best. They're just kind of like that middle division, but that division's always super competitive. Usually one of the last divisions that's totally filled out, and that we know who's going to the playoffs and such. Personally, I got the Brewers. I think if Christian Yelich can stay healthy, this will be the team that can kind of get things done for the NL Central. But we probably won't know who the team is going to the playoffs in the NL Central. I would say within maybe 4 days from the end of the season. So
yeah, like I said, if before the show, if teams are being judged by how many times they make the playoffs, the Cardinals will be what we call the Patriots because they're always there. No matter if they're good or bad, they're always in. So the Cardinals is the one team that you need to keep your eye on. Let's quickly move on to the NL West. Obviously, the Dodgers are the most talented team in the division, but let's focus on which team do you think can grab a wild card? Maybe the second wild card in the NL West because we all know the Dodgers are going to win it. I kind of put you on the spot there because that's not the question we came up with.
I have the Dodgers winning the division. Probably the Padres, just because their farm system is so deep right now, and it's clearly trending in the right direction. There were a lot of things we saw last season where you could see this team challenging for a playoff spot maybe in the near future.
A bit more sentimental, as for the first time in a long time, the big house in Ann Arbor was rocking and packed while singing Mr. Brightside by the Killers. 110,000 fans belted out the song in a Michigan victory over Western Michigan. It was a really cool moment to see fans unifying over something at a game again. There are plenty of great songs to hear at a game. What song would you want to see 110,000 fans sing together at a sporting event?
Oh, wow, that's a really good question.
Somebody to Love by Queen, easily.
Yeah, that's classic.
Yeah.
Don the Champ.
This might be a weird answer, but I really like Hail Mary by Tupac. I think 110 people bumping that would be so cool.
Okay. Tupac's always good at a sporting event.
I would have to go with Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond.
The late 60s marked a shift of the paradigm in the United States.
Nonetheless, the framework of teamwork remained constant, sharpening their focus on the drive toward success. Number 24, Ted Coy, halfback, had a key role. He was a captain of the UT football team who averaged 5.3 yards a carry that season. He was a second-round pick in the NFL draft who played for the Raiders and Bills from 1970 to 1974. Number 84, Tom Campbell, defensive back, had a significant impact. He was a consensus All-Southwest Conference defensive back, leading the conference in interceptions. He played alongside his twin brother Mike, who was a defensive back as well, and his dad, Mike, the defensive coordinator. The 1960s were a time of change. This was a change that rippled across the nation.
The nation as a whole was in transition, and nobody knew what things were transitioning to. You had the Vietnam War, you had the social unrest, you had the integration issues, just had a lot of things that were very important, and change was taking place. And the campuses across the nation were not immune to that. There was a lot of unrest, a lot of different directions going. People weren't sure what the next step was.
Welcome into College Crossfire. Thank you for being here with us tonight. I'm your host, Jonathan Polasic. Let's meet our first set of panelists to kick off this new year. It's an all-freshman panelist, but as Sean Mapes would say, at this point, none of y'all are freshmen.
Absolutely
None of y'all
not.
are freshmen right now.
Well,
to start us off, Clark Dalton. Clark, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Doing great, doing great. Looking to get the first win of the semester, but we've got College Crossfire first-timer Matt Marinchak. Matt, how you feeling?
Good, great to be here.
Great to be here. And another first-timer on College Crossfire is Robert Trevino. How are you feeling tonight?
I'm doing great tonight. Crowd's really loving me.
Yeah, the Boo Birds are already out. The Boo Birds are out in full force. Well, glad to have you all on tonight, so let's just jump right on in. Texas football played in the Sugar Bowl against the Georgia Bulldogs on January 1st to end their season. It was the first time since the 2009 BCS championship game that Texas played in a huge bowl game. Now, Texas wasn't given much of a chance to beat Georgia, but the Horns came out hot and coasted to an easy 28-21 win. But just how great of a win was this? Let's start with Clark.
This is the biggest win in the Tom Herman era, no question. It's really, truly that trademark win that Tom was looking for, because you had USC earlier that year, but this was not the USC team of old. That's a team that struggled a bit. They were 5-7. Georgia was just a year ago. They were one play away from potentially winning the national championship, and this proved that Texas can contend on an elite scale. They're among the top teams in the nation. They're with Oklahoma now. They're with Alabama, and they're with Clemson. They now have a chance to truly give them a test.
And they're also above Georgia.
Yes. Yes, they are above Georgia.
The AP poll.
After a season that started with so much promise, the Longhorns have slipped into the cellar of the Big 12 after dropping a series to the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Texas needed every victory so they could dig themselves out of the hole. Let's head to Stillwater for the highlights. We're going to start at the bottom of the sixth inning. It's high 5-5. Andrew Navigado driving it into left center field. A little bit of a miscommunication between the Texas fielders, and that allows the Cowboys to drive in a 2-run RBI. But Texas is going to ride the bat of Tate Shaw. He drives this one deep. It's headed towards right. It's gone. Texas is going to pull within 2 runs. It's 7-9 at the top of the 7th inning. And Austin Todd, another power hitter. However, he's not going to hit a home run this time. He's going to hit it into right field. Oklahoma State catches the pop fly, but the throw is too high, and Duke Ellis slides in, giving Texas the lead at the top of the 9th inning. The Longhorns were hoping they could escape Stillwater with a victory. However, things would take a turn for the worse. Mason Bryan, the freshman pitcher. Oh no, it's a wild pitch with a runner on base. Oklahoma State is headed. Noah Sithrift gets in and ties the game at the bottom of the 9th inning, and there's only 1 out. And Andrew Navigado with the dagger, a double into center field. Texas is not going to be able to catch it. There's runners on base. Oklahoma State is going to capture this one 11-10. The Longhorns would drop out of the top 25 after this loss. And the other day, and he said basically the thesis of the video was, do what makes you happy. He was saying that his guidance counselor when he was in 9th grade said, you'll never make it in basketball, which is hard to believe because Kobe Bryant's one of the 10 greatest players ever, no question. And he said, don't stop yourself from chasing your dreams. You keep chasing your dreams. Other people will always
try to stop you from doing something and eventually fulfilling yourself. But you just keep going and going and going. And that's what Kobe was all about, the ultimate warrior mentality. Going out there, fighting for every loose ball, like he was the 12th guy on the floor, even when he was in the best of the world. So I guess it's just try to have a life that's fulfilling, be humble, and work hard.
I think, yeah, that was excellent right there, Clark. I'm going to give the 2 points to you right there. I mean, I think what you said with the guidance counselor story and the idea of being humble and working hard and getting what you would achieve.
Doubt killed more dreams than failure ever did.
Joining us in the studio is football analyst Clark Dalton. After taking a look at Texas' performance, we see that Texas all around struggled to progressively pose a threat to TCU's Horned Frogs. What were the main reasons for the loss against TCU?
Well, Jay, the first reason was freshman quarterback Max Duggan. This was kind of his coming out game. He threw for 273 yards against the Longhorns. And also, one thing that kind of surprised the Longhorns with Duggan was his mobility. It permitted some creativity in the TCU offense. And another thing that allowed TCU to excel was they stayed in front of people on the offensive and defensive side of the balls. The receivers had those little quick moves at the line of scrimmage that allowed them to race deep. And the defensive backs stayed in front of the receivers, which limited Sam's passing options.
Absolutely. Clark, could not disagree at all. Kansas throughout the night just seemed more prepared and better than Texas seemed to be. However, Clark, I would like to ask, after looking at this past game and previous games against the Kansas Jayhawks and the Oklahoma Sooners, what are some few takeaways from the impact of coaching and play calling on the recent results on the team?
Jay, it's a game of Jimmys and Joes, not X's and O's. The system is only as good as the players that are in it. Let's look at some of the injuries that Texas has had. Caden Stearns, DeMarvion Overshawn, B.J. Foster. Colin Johnson is not 100% either. All key players. And the system is built around those pieces. It was working at the beginning of the year, but then you play tough teams like LSU and Oklahoma early, and that's just a cost that comes with it when you get in that big physical style of play. And that's when you don't have those pieces later in the season, the system just doesn't operate the same or as smoothly.
True, definitely, Clark. Looking into the next few weeks, going against Kansas State, Iowa State, and Tech, there is going to need to be a change and improvement in some of the things that Texas is doing to get out of this slump. On that note, with the loss against TCU, Texas is out of the top 25. What do you think?
Jay, these are the times that try men's souls. And that was written by Thomas Paine during American Crisis when it appeared that the American Revolution had been lost. And the meaning of that quote is, you don't find out who you are when things are going right. You find out who you are when the situation is messy and when you get knocked down. That's just part of life. Sometimes you have to get back up and keep moving forward. And it definitely applies to Texas football right now because it's a roller coaster of highs and lows that can range from winning a national championship to the loss you witnessed that weekend. Does that mean you should stop being a fan of sport? Absolutely not, because it's that losing that makes you appreciate winning just a little bit more. So Texas fans, keep coming out and having fun at DKR. To the Texas football team, you have 4 games left. So try to give it 100% full throttle because an opportunity may lay ahead and you need to seize it.
Block or punt. So this next time we did it, unfortunately I didn't have this conversation with Mike, but we both came in at the same time. And this time we both dove out there like it was picture day. And unfortunately, his helmet came right up underneath my face mask. It hit me right there and snapped these 2 teeth off. They just fell down in the grass. So now I'm on my knees looking for my teeth. I'm thinking maybe I can go to the dentist and they can glue them back in. I'm 19 years old. What do I know? And finally I realized that my dad was standing right in front of me as I'm going through the blades of grass looking for my teeth. And I finally found them, and I was on my knees, I was holding them up, and I realized that was my dad. And as I was looking at him, I said, "Daddy, Mike just knocked my 2 front teeth out." And I'm thinking that he's going to try to say, "Well, Tom, you need to go see the trainer, get to the locker room." Instead, he looked at all of the other 21 players that were standing around waiting for instruction for him. They're wondering what is going on. I'm looking for somebody to feel sorry for me and send me to the locker room. He looked at me and looked at the teeth, then he turned around and looked at everyone else and hollered, "Do it again!" And he turned around and walked away. That's when I threw my teeth at him, and they're still out there, I guess. And we did it 3 more times. My teeth were bleeding. They hurt. I had blood coming down. He said, "Do it again." We did it 3 more times, and he said, "You guys are never going to block this punt. Go on to the locker room." Wow. That's the way he was.
That sounds really tough.
Well, they didn't call him Iron Mike for nothing.
Yeah, he definitely earned that nickname.
Yeah. Anyway, he was tougher. I think he was probably tougher. Most of our teammates say he was tougher on Mike and I than he were the other players, but he had to be. He had to be.
Clark Dalton was down at the gym for the matchup against the Baylor Bears. Let's head over there to check it out.
In the middle of the season, the Texas Longhorns were struggling to find their identity. On Wednesday night against the Baylor Bears, the Horns sought to end this roller coaster ride with a victory that could save their tournament chances and another year from broken promise. Guards Kerwin Roach and Matt Coleman set the stage for a statement win by scoring 39 points combined.
We was very well aware of the conference standings, and that was on a 6-game winning streak. The last 2 games they won by like 50 plus. They blew out TCU and blew out somebody else. But, we just came in there and we just sat down on us to just draw the line in the sand. And you just got to stand up. And we just played our best basketball today.
Their collective performance electrified the offense as the Longhorns shot 61% from the field in the first half, building a 15-point lead by halftime. Baylor tried to claw back, but each jab was rendered by a Texas counter.
Obviously made the run in the second half, and they played with just nothing to lose and great aggressiveness. But I thought our guys responded really well. Key for us with this group and all year is just recovering from something if it doesn't go your way.
The 84-72 win not only improved Texas' standing in the Big 12, it showcased the resilience of a team that had been cast aside as a pretender.
Games like this serve as a turning point in the season, where a team begins to scratch the surface of their potential, fulfilling their ultimate greatness.
If the Longhorns continue to feed off this performance, the remainder of the conference could be in store for a surprise.
We got 8 games left, and it's wide open for the taking, so I just want to take advantage of all these games.
As of right now, one fact is clear. Don't write this team off, because pressure occasionally forges a diamond in the rough. From Frank Irwin Center, I'm Clark Dalton, TSTV Sports.
Trivia. Whoever gets closest to this number will take the point. How many of the current 32 NFL franchises have played in a Super Bowl?
28.
27.9. No, I'll say 26.
How about that? Clark is spot on. 28 teams have played in a Super Bowl. So 3 points for Clark, 1 point for Henry. This next question, though, we have the opportunity to earn 4 points. Can you name those 4 teams that are not 1 point for each guess?
Lions, Jaguars, Browns, and Texans.
Man, I tell you what, Clark was on it. Those are all 4. The Lions, Jaguars, Texans, and Browns have never played in an NFL Super Bowl. Clark definitely knows his NFL trivia. Now, again, whoever gets closest to this number will get the point. How many times in NFL history has there been a repeat champion?
4.
8.
Man, Clark is on the ball. It is 8. It's happened 8 times in NFL history. The Steelers have done it a couple times. The Cowboys, 49ers, Packers, Dolphins, Broncos, and the Patriots. So we'll have to see if the Chiefs do it for the 9th time this Sunday. And then this last one, this is a gem. This is probably the toughest question possibly. Can you guys guess the only team with multiple wins in the Super Bowl without a loss? To make it a little bit easier, this team is in the AFC.
Baltimore Ravens by chance?
Multiple wins without a loss. The Chiefs.
Man, Clark is on it. I tell you what, Clark knows his Super Bowl trivia. Do not try and challenge him. It is the Baltimore Ravens. They are 2-0 in Super Bowls. They won Super Bowl 35 over the Giants, and then a couple years ago, when the lights went out in the Superdome, they won Super Bowl 47 over the 49ers. So we hope that you had a fun time with those at home. I know our panelists certainly did. Credit to Clark. He knows his Super Bowl trivia. Coming up, we'll take a look at
Bailey Wald and Nick Kuholtz to break down the matchups in the conference championship game. Bailey, looking at the quarterback position, you have two great players, with Sam Ehlinger having a breakout season with 34 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, while Kyler Murray is a top Heisman contender. So two incredible players, but who are you giving the edge to?
This one is very clearly Kyler Murray. Ehlinger has had a good season so far, and we have seen him improve, but he really doesn't compare it to Murray. As far as passing, Murray's completion percentage is 70%, and Ehlinger isn't far behind at 64%, but Murray has successfully thrown over 1,000 yards more than Ehlinger so far this season. Murray is consistently throwing 3 to 4 touchdowns in the majority of his games, and there were even 4 against Texas when they lost, where Ehlinger has only had 1 to 2 in most of his games, and that just won't beat OU. Murray has thrown 7 interceptions this season, where Ehlinger has only had 4, but the Texas defense really could use that. But Murray is also an amazing runner. He is just a star athlete. They have about the same amount of rushing touchdowns, but Murray has really just run the entire field a lot more than Ehlinger, and that's something that the defense hasn't really dealt with this season. So it will be a challenge, but I would give it to Murray for those reasons.
Dual threat quarterbacks are always hard to stop.
I don't think the Cardinals win the NFC West right now with that trade, even though DeAndre Hopkins is an elite talent. One move that I loved over the offseason, and it can help this team win now, is Stephon Diggs going to the Buffalo Bills. It's important because it opens up their offense. They have a young, developing quarterback in Josh Allen, who for the first time in his career has a top-tier #1 wide receiver to throw to, and he can grow with him. And this opens up new possibilities for the Bills because they really haven't had the ability to attack vertically downfield. And now with a move like that, you had Diggs, who's a huge asset in Minnesota. He was a 1,000-yard receiver. Now it brings you closer to competing with the Chiefs and Ravens in the future.
Joe Biden will be inviting the Super Bowl champs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the NBA champs, the Los Angeles Lakers, to the White House at a later date when it is more COVID safe. In 2019, President Trump invited the National College Football champions, the Clemson Tigers, to the White House and served them burgers, pizza, and fries from McDonald's, Burger King's, Wendy's, and Domino's. Interesting buffet selection. But if you were being invited to the White House after winning a national championship, what meal would you want President Biden to provide you?
Jaxie, I'll take this one first. Again, this is another shout out to my home, great city of New York right here. I'm going to go with a slice of dollar pizza and probably cheap soda as well on the side, a Sprite or something like that. I'm a simple man. I will take that. Slice of New York dollar pizza for me.
All right, the New Yorker in yours coming out. What else?
Well, if I'm going to go to the White House, I'm going to try to get myself as much food as possible. So I'd like a buffet of sorts. It could be from any nation, but I think Joe Biden would have the resources to provide me with pretty much any food from the United States. So maybe getting a sampling from each state, I think that'd be a pretty cool thing that Mr. President himself can do for me.
Okay, I like it. Just kind of a taste of the U.S.
Essentially.
Okay, Clark?
I think.
Mark has something good coming. I feel it.
No, I don't.
No, I don't.
Honestly, what I'm thinking, this is a bad answer, but I'm just going to say it because it's the first thing that comes to my head. I want some ice cream at the White House. I want to be simple because I want the sweet taste of victory. We'll figure out the entree later. Joe doesn't have to worry about that. Just surprise me. But I want to have ice cream in reminiscence of the Super Bowl victory.
Okay, I think I'm going to have to give Clark the points on this one. I think the sweet taste of victory, just to kind of have a theme to go along with it. And then you could just kind of have like every kind of ice cream because he's a big ice cream guy. I don't know if you know, he's a big Jenny's fan. So I think that was creative, Clark. So you're going to get the points on that one. But
Live. Welcome to an excellent battle between the Texas Longhorns and the Dallas Baptist Patriots. I'm Clark Dalton here with my color commentator, Zach Lapp. Zach, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, Clark. I can't wait for this game between two of the top teams in the conference. Actually, the two top teams in the conference in the Texas Longhorns and the Dallas Baptist Patriots. It should be a very exciting matchup tonight. Both teams looking to show that they are the best team in this conference of the TCAC.
And it has huge stake for the Longhorns tonight as they made their first top 10 appearance ever in the ACH poll.
True. The coach was very excited. Coach Berkowitz was very excited about that since it was the first time, and that the players are very excited to do well.
Exactly. It's a huge building block for this program, and it allows them to put them on a national scale that will continue to propel them into the future. Trying to get that face-off. Hunter Miller, Plesnick going at it. He gets it to Samadian. Samadian looking for Pillar. And Carita retains it. One-on-one breakaway opportunity. Goal for Joe Carita. Texas up one.
Carita, his second goal.
In Texas baseball, the Horns were firing on all cylinders in this series. What went right for the Longhorns?
Yeah, this game series was very, very interesting since it was kind of back and forth. Texas had the first game, the Houston took the second game, and then the third game is when the Longhorns finally brought it home. Like you were saying before, that like a notable player, shout out to Ty Madden for his performance in the first game. I think he had a lot to do with the first game win, pitching 14 strikeouts, and for the third game to really, really take the series for the Horns, they had to start out and shut out Houston really early, and I think that's what contributed to them winning the series. They got Houston earlier in that third game to the point where they were not able to recover. And then also shout out to Trey Faltine. He just had a great game and helped bring the game home for the Horns in the ninth inning. And overall, just consistency and game one and game three with the players. Game two, it was a little different, but I think the consistency in game one and game three really contributed to them winning the series.
Absolutely. That consistency is really important. And it's been important for Ty Madden because we know it's important for Texas to have a starting ace. Usually when they're a really competitive team, they have a starting pitcher who's just been dominant. And Ty Madden was that way against BYU, and he was that way against Houston. If he can continue to do that throughout the season, that's a great sign for the Longhorns. And he's a part of a young core of players who comprise the foundation of this team. Out of this core, who have been the standouts this year, Emmy?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we have Ty Madden, as we were talking about earlier, and then we have older players like Zach Zubia and Cam Williams. But yeah, the young core and the young talent has been stepping up so far, which is really encouraging to see since the team will undergo a couple rebuilding years. And this is up-and-coming group of talent is just really promising. So one shout-out is to Silas Arduin with a base percentage of .357, which makes him one of the best on the team in that regard, which is super impressive, him being so young. And of course, there is the potential candidate for the all Big 12 freshman team. It's Douglas Hodo III with the best batting average on the team, leading the on-base percentage as well. So he's got his hands in both of those pods, just really, really a well-rounded player with a lot of different talent. And then last but not least, I mentioned him earlier, but Trey Faltine, and seemingly without fault due to his starting in almost every game of the season so far with he's one of the only players with a stolen base so far, and he leads the team with 5 double plays. So Trey Faltine is really making his mark on this program so far. We also have Mitchell Daly and Tanner Witt. I could go on and on about some of these younger players, but those are just a few that I'm going to shout out. So it's just, like I was saying before, lots of promise, and it's going to be exciting to see them continue to develop as the season progresses.
Absolutely. I mean, you can see David Pierce is doing a great job in recruiting because last year with this freshman class, I think the media in Austin knew, hey, this is something special here with a player like Trey Faltine to come in. It looks like he can play Major League Baseball already. And then Douglas Hodo III this year is kind of that freshman stud. And if they can continue to pull in those recruits, it's a bright sign for the program. And this year they're off to a great start as well. They're 7-5, but they can still elevate their game. They don't want to be on the fringe of the Big 12 title. They want to be the clear favorite competing for a College World Series. How do they go about this?
Yeah, like you were saying, they want to still be able to elevate, which is still very, very doable as conference play is just about to start at the end of the month, and also the team doesn't face arguably its biggest challenge in TCU, just given their amount of College World Series appearances, till later in the spring, and they also play OU later in the spring, but that is at home. So it's just nice to have some of those either rivalry or biggest challenges, either far off or for at home field advantage. But what they really need to focus on is they really need to improve their batting average. We saw in the second game against Houston, that is where they kind of fell off, which was a little disappointing. And obviously they need to improve their batting average so they can get on base more and score more. But there's lots of teams in the Big 12 that present a challenge for the Horns. So we're just going to have to see how they fare against Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, even Baylor. But like you were saying, and like we were saying earlier, it's the consistency in players, communication between players, continuing to hone in a chemistry in the team, and just, they need to increase that batting average. But other than that,
yeah, they're definitely going to have to step up their batting average. But we saw it last year. Players like Zach Zubia and Trey Faltine are definitely capable of stepping up. And hey, maybe it's a good thing for them to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder in the season so they can push through. Emmy, thanks for joining us. When we come back, softball looks to defend their 10-0 start against LSU. Stick around. You won't want to miss it.
Yeah, and they've been 1-3 in the AP poll, and that's a crucial aspect of determining where you're seated in the tournament. I don't think this Texas team is a 4 seed quite possibly at all, because they have to face Iowa State, who's surging within the Big 12 right now and will likely be second over them by the time the conference tournament comes around. And you have Baylor, who looks like the best team in the nation right now. And that loss to Mississippi State was by 20-plus points. So that made it even look worse on their resume.
You see, right now in the world of college football, Texas is on one mission. They're a battering ram trying to break a wall of water, a water that's a Crimson Sea. Now, it didn't break down today, but that wall began to show its cracks. And one day, that Crimson Sea will part. Reporting from the Cotton Bowl, Clark Dalton, TSTV Sports.
NCAA National Championship. Now joining us to discuss all the changes that have occurred over the past couple of weeks is our analyst, Clark Dalton. Clark, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Now, Clark, obviously you never want a season to be canceled, regardless of the circumstances. But of the teams who had their season canceled, which would you say benefited the most from this happening?
I don't think any team benefited from the cancellations at all. That's not to avoid the question, but you have to understand the long-term implications of this pandemic. These athletes were looking forward to joining the prestigious history of Texas athletics by competing in Big 12 championships and national tournaments, and that has been taken away from them. You had seniors who, when they walked on to the 40 acres 4 years ago, dedicated their heart and soul to the program. They've lost their last triumph in Austin. It's an emotional blow to everyone who is involved. Additionally, you lose a large portion of the off season since you can't access facilities. Yeah, you can work out at home, but you can't replicate the same intensity as a more formal session.
Yeah, you mentioned that none benefited from this, though. Shaka Smart might beg to differ. However, who would you say that the cancellation of the spring and winter seasons, which team would you say it hurt the most?
Softball. This team was on a roll headed into Big 12 play. They had a 24-3 record, totaled 199 runs, and had an ERA of 1.78. Additionally, they had proved their legitimacy as a national power, knocking off teams like the defending national champion UCLA. It appeared that their talent and swagger would allow them to go toe-to-toe with Oklahoma and maybe drive them to being one of the 4 teams in June that had a chance at the national championship. But they will never know and always ask, what if? It would be frustrating to have the possibility of a championship in the back of your mind and was erased by a situation that was out of your hand.
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about softball earlier in the show, and I mean, talked about an incredible season. But the NCAA has to try to remedy having to cancel the season. They're offering an extra year of eligibility to seniors. So for you, Clark, which winter or spring sports senior on the 40 acres would you want to return next year the most?
I would love to have any of these seniors back. I see bright things ahead of them down the road, but if I had to pick one, I'm going to discuss a sport we haven't talked about extensively on College Press Box, and that is tennis. So I'm going to go with the Tarati twins,
Anna and Bianca. They are two of the best players in college tennis. They've been ranked in the top 10 individually. They put Texas back on the map. In 2018, 2019, and 2020, Texas was ranked in the ITA top 5 3 times. They hadn't done that since 2006, before the Trotti twins came here. They played with a competitive fire and class that has left a mark on the program, and they will try to emulate going forward.
Yeah, the Trotti twins, so incredible. Now, meanwhile, on the basketball court, maybe one of the most surprising decisions to some was Texas's decision to move on from Karen Aston and not extend her contract. But Clark, should people be surprised? And what is your reaction to Texas making this move?
Decisions, especially this one, are tough to make. When someone is taking the team to new levels, yet not the levels that some individuals expect, it creates emotions on both sides. However, you have to move forward and try to steer the program in the direction you feel it needs to go. Aston has definitely returned the program to a standard of excellence, earning multiple NCAA tournament wins, taking the Longhorns as far as the Elite Eight in 2016. She's proven her credibility as a head coach. With that being said, Texas fans should greet new coach Vic Schaefer with open arms. He led Mississippi State to back-to-back Final Fours in 2017 and 2018. Hopefully he can have the same success on the 40 acres.
Well, Clark, thanks so much for joining us. Great analysis as usual. Now let's transition to things maybe more out.
Yeah, do we have time for FaceTime? Yeah. We have plenty of time for FaceTime. So you, Clark, it's all you. It's all you.
So I wanted to talk about something I saw on my SI today. It was an article on Patrick Mahomes. For those of you who don't know, Patrick Mahomes has set a touchdown record for the most touchdowns to 3 games. Sorry, catching my breath a little bit from winning. Excited. But I've noticed something. No, I wasn't trying to diss on you guys. But I've noticed something in the NFL just recently. It's the proliferation of young quarterbacks. Think about it. Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Patrick Mahomes. Usually, rookies are supposed to struggle, but they're flourishing. Why is this? Well, it's a changing of the guard in the NFL. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers are all getting older, which means somebody has to rise to the podium. That's what we're seeing right now. And it's not just in the NFL, it's across all sports. Ben Simmons and LeBron James. So you might as well enjoy it, because we're about to enter a new generation.
Wow. Thank you for tuning in once again and spending your Monday evening with us. We hope you enjoyed this episode. It may be a wrap for Press Box, but we have more action on the 40 acres later this week. Be sure to check out the spring break edition of College Crossfire with host Zach Left on Wednesday at 9 p.m. From studio and master control, I'm Clark Dalton alongside James Grant. Have a great night.